So what this is called you'll hear me call it Killgallon, and Killgallon is the author of the book. So when I say pull out your Killgallon work, this is what I'm talking about, okay? So what we've started in sentence composing for who? For middle school, okay? That's okay. We all have to start somewhere. So what I did is I pulled some of the lessons that I think we need the most, that I see the most in your writing, okay? The other thing that I think this is going to help is, you know how when we are reading star samples, we're like, man, the language or the structure of the sentences just sounds like higher level, right? So some of these things that we're going to see will be, that we'll work through, will be the things that kind of help you to raise your writing a little bit, okay? So the very first thing we're going to look at is comma splices, avoiding comma splices. The most common punctuation error in student writing is when two sentences are joined or spliced together with only a comma between them. So here is your definition of a comma splice. And what you may see me write on your paper is CS. I think y'all have seen it sometimes when I am reading your papers. This error, called a comma splice, creates problems because readers can't tell where one sentence ends and the next begins. In all of the following practices in this text, avoid writing comma splices. To help you learn how to eliminate them, do activities 6 and 7. So we'll walk through that. So here's an example of a comma splice. Okay, so one of the things that I like about this is that once we get into a little bit later work, the sentences that we're using are like literature-based sentences that have been published in literature. Which I like, so they're not like the corny sentences that you find in No Red Ink. So here is your example of a comma splice. His heart pounding, his lungs inhaling and exhaling like a bellows. Alfred, lunging toward his opponent Jacobs in the third round with his left, swung but missed. Recovering from the miss, he turned swiftly, aimed again, and this time connected squarely with Jacobs' jaw. So where you see the comma splice is that. So what a comma splice is it's two sentences mushed together. So first of all, let's talk about what makes a complete sentence. What are the two parts of a complete sentence? Yep, subject and predicate, or subject and verb, right? So when you have two complete thoughts mushed together, that's a comma splice. You'll also see this a lot on STAR in the revising and editing, like how to fix this sentence the best. You'll see a lot of comma splices. All right. So here are your rules. These are the 4 ways to eliminate comma splices. These are your rules. The first one, we're going to make 2 sentences. So notice, his heart pounding, his lungs inhaling and exhaling like a bellows. Alfred, lunging toward his opponent Jacobs in the third round with his left, swung but missed. Notice, period. 2 complete sentences, okay? So where is your subject of that first part, that first sentence? Alfred. There is your subject. Where is your verb? What did Alfred actually do? Nope. Swung. Because look, his heart pounding is describing who? Alfred. His lungs inhaling and exhaling, describing Alfred. Lunging toward his opponent is describing Alfred. What did Alfred actually do? Swung. Okay. Recovering from the miss, he turned swiftly, aimed again, and this time connected. So he is your subject, right? Turned is your verb. Aimed is your verb. And connected is your verb. Good? Rule number 2. Keep the comma, but add a fanboy. His heart pounding, his lungs inhaling and exhaling like a bellows, Alfred, lunging towards his opponent, Jacobs, in the third round with his left, swung but missed. But, recovering from the miss, he turned swiftly, aimed again, and this time connected squarely with Jacobs' jaw. So notice you have the comma, then you also have to add the fanboy. Next, change the comma to a semicolon. Alfred, lunging towards his opponent, Jacobs, in the third round with his left, swung but missed. So notice the semicolon, and then notice that you do not capitalize after. Recovering from the miss, he turned swiftly, aimed again, and this time connected squarely with Jacobs' jaw. So what you're seeing in the rules is you're seeing them slowly move to a higher level sentence. 1 and 2 are probably the lowest. 1 is the lowest. 3 is a little bit higher. Now, this does not mean, by God, that I want you just to start mushing sentences together with semicolons. Okay? The reason a semicolon works is that the two sentences on either side are connected, right? They're related. They're kind of one furthering the other. You can't just mush sentences together randomly. But my favorite is the fourth one. Change the comma to a semicolon and add nevertheless, however, therefore, moreover, in fact, for example, consequently, or as a result, which are called conjunctive adverbs. You don't have to know that. And put a comma after the conjunctive adverb. So this is the highest level. His heart pounding, his lungs inhaling and exhaling like a bellows, Alfred, lunging towards his opponent, Jacobs, in the third round with his left, swung but missed. However, recovering from the miss, he turned swiftly, aimed again, and this time connected squarely with Jacobs' jaw. This one, out of all four, I think sounds the best. This is done purposely. Now, not every sentence or not every comma splice can be changed into a semicolon with a conjunctive adverb, right? But if you can, this sentence reads as a higher level sentence than 2 or 3. Does that make sense? Okay, so there are your rules. So let's look at the first practice. Practice number 1. Locate and eliminate the comma splice by making that comma a period and capitalizing the next word to create 2 separate sentences. So what are we doing? We're doing rule number 1 here, right? All right. So what's good so far is that when we get a little bit later into these, what Killgallon calls these is he calls each one of these like a sentence chunk. So we're not worried about the grammatical term of what each one of these is, whether it's an adverbial phrase, whether it's a prepositional phrase. We're not worried about that right now. We're worried that the only thing that we're worried about is that these are thoughts or ideas that are chunked together. Okay? What's good is that right now they are all in order. When we get a little bit later, these chunks of ideas are going to be out of order, and you're going to have to order them and punctuate them correctly. Okay? But for right now, all we're doing is number 1. So let's read through the sentence. When Mark Twain, the famous author whose real name was Samuel Clemens, was a boy of 14, he thought his father was stupid. When Twain reached 21, he was amazed how much his father had learned. All right. First, where is your first subject? Hello? Mark Twain is your subject. Okay. Now the second part. The famous author is talking about what? Who's the famous author? Mark Twain. I like to draw arrows. It just makes sense to me. The famous author whose real name was Samuel Clemens is still talking about Twain. Okay. I'm going to tell you that this is wrong. What is your subject? Indirectly, yes, it is Mark Twain, but he is your subject. Why? Because this is an introductory phrase. Your subject doesn't come in your introductory phrase. So what did he do? He thought. So that's your verb. Where's your next subject? If this when was an introductory phrase, there's another introductory phrase. He is your subject. What's your verb? Was amazed is your verb. Okay? So, with all those commas, where is your comma splice? Between what two sentences? Okay? So, this is where your separate sheet of paper comes in, because what is the direction? It doesn't just say to find it, you have to locate it and eliminate it. Okay? So, on your separate sheet of paper, you're going to title it Activity 6, and if you're doing this in your composition notebook, that's fine. Avoiding comma splices, and we're going to date it. What's today? The 5th. Okay, we're doing practice number 1, sentence 1. So now you actually have to write this sentence. Okay. And what I would like you to do for this one is skip down to the next line when you start the new sentence. So, one of the reasons why I like this is because with no red ink, you guys never wrote at all, right? So this is going to actually have you writing multiple sentences, though you are writing the sentences that you're given. Eventually we'll get to where you will mimic sentences. But I like this because you're physically writing, and that's the only way that your writing is going to get better is by writing better quality sentences. Plus, as we study this, it's going to help you to understand Dickens a little bit more as well. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. I want to show you one thing. So today we're going to continue. We're going to finish working through practice 1 through number 4. Okay, we'll do that here in a minute. But what will happen on a daily basis when you walk in, if when you walk in you see this, right, up on the board and it circled it and it has like the date, let's say like today, let's say you walked in, you'll walk in, pull out your Killgallon stuff, do that sentence, bell will ring, give me a couple minutes to take row, I'll say, okay, let's look at the sentence, what do y'all have? We'll fix it, we'll read it out loud, then we move forward. Okay, so it's going to be kind of our warm-up, all right? We won't have to have another full day of working on Killgallon stuff until we move to another practice that has different directions where you might need my help to kind of work through. But otherwise, this is just going to be a quick get in, do one on your warm-up, get in. So when you walk in, if it's up on the board, that's what you need to get in and get started doing, okay? All right, so here's what I need you to do today.